This week has been all Hillary, all convention politics. We haven't really had a serious discussion, though, or a serious critique at least, of Hillary's innovation platform, or Hillary's innovation plan, which she came out with late last month. My guest today, Larry Downs, a frequent guest on INNOVATE2016, is here, though, to talk about Hillary's plan. He just published something in the Harvard Business Review on the plan. Larry, welcome back to INNOVATE2016. A brief review of Hillary's innovation plan. Larry, so briefly?
Briefly, there's a lot of good in it, there's a lot of bad in it, and much of it probably won't get done, mostly because she's going to need a very cooperative Congress to enact any of the programs that she has in mind, and likelihood of a cooperative Congress, as we've seen over the last decade, is very, very low for any candidate.
So we shouldn't even be discussing this?
Well, there's some things that a president can do, and I think it's important to discuss just the fact that there is one. We really haven't had a plan like this.
Very encouraging then, really. I mean, we can be cynical, and we always are. We always seem to be on this show.
Yeah, we didn't expect this kind of a document from any of the candidates. We haven't seen this since the days of, frankly, of Bill Clinton, maybe 20 years ago. To actually come out and say what the innovation ideas would be. So we were a little surprised and frankly encouraged that they're even thinking about it.
High-level points, what was she saying in her plan?
Well, what she was saying largely was, that we want to get everybody on the internet who isn't already on the internet. We want to increase the environment for innovation so that more disruption can happen, more entrepreneurs can do things. That's all to the good. Some of the specifics are different.
Well, she wouldn't say the opposite. She wouldn't say that she doesn't want to get people on the internet.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because some of her rivals and some of her colleagues have made some pretty disparaging remarks about some of the most recent innovations. So, for example, Bernie Sanders has said repeatedly on the campaign trail he's very suspicious about Uber. He doesn't like it. He thinks it's anti-labor. Elizabeth Warren, the very next day after the Hillary plan came out and said that all the large tech companies were too big. They needed to be broken up by antitrust law. So, in fact, there are people who think our internet miracle is not such a good thing.
What about net neutrality? That's been such a long-running saga. What's her position on that?
It's pretty straightforward and not surprising. She's fully in favor of what the FCC did to turn the internet into a public utility. The courts upheld that.
Are you in favor of that? Do you think that's wise?
Well, I'm sure you would know I've written repeatedly that the transformation of the internet into a public utility.
Your opportunity to tell the viewers why perhaps it's not such a wise policy.
Yeah, well, you only have to look at our existing public utilities and how well they perform and how well they innovate and how well they do with new technologies when they come along. Think about our energy industry and solar power, to realize that a public utility is not the way to deal with an infrastructure that's changing as quickly as the internet is.
Any sense, by the way, of Trump's position on net neutrality?
Oh yeah, this is one of the few things he's actually said anything about. He hasn't said much in detail, but he's very opposed to what the FCC. Did he tweet about it? Yes, he's tweeted about it. He's very much opposed to a lot of the sort of activist FCC action the last couple of years.
So in that sense, you'd be on Trump's side?
Well, if that actually represents what a Trump administration would do, yes.
Back to Hillary.
Yep.
You gave her a thumbs down on net neutrality. Where else are the thumbs up?
Well, the big thumbs up is on immigration. I mean, first of all, there's really only three things that Silicon Valley executives care about from a presidential candidate. One is immigration, two is patent reform, and three is foreign tax repatriation reform. She says nothing about foreign tax repatriation, no surprise there. But on immigration, she said it as clearly as she could possibly say, which is every PhD, master's students in STEM from a foreign country should be given a green card at the time of their graduation. That's what Silicon Valley's wanted to hear for a decade.
And that's a brave position, isn't it?
It is.
Particularly given the Brexit vote.
Yeah. It was as clear a statement as anything in the plan, and really the strongest thing I think she said.
And do you think she's going to come out fighting on that? Because Trump obviously takes an extremely different position.
Yeah, it's hard to say how this is going to come up in the actual presidential campaign. These tech things almost never make it. They'll certainly talk about immigration, but I suspect it'll be more at the high level rather than at the specific level of H-1B visas.
Did she give us any sense of the kind of administration she'd run, whether it would be wired, connected, whether digital would be the heart of her governing strategy?
No, not really. I mean, I think most people expect that if she gets elected, it'll be largely continuation of the Obama administration, which of course has been very wired, very pro-technology in its rhetoric, and in some cases actually in its activities. And I think most people expect there would be a continuation of that.
Some people say that Obama was a little too close to Silicon Valley, especially some of its larger companies. Do you think Hillary might back off some of that?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously she has a lot longer tradition of being an inside DC person than he did, and so I expect that, you know, she would run a more traditional DC administration with the usual suspects rather than Obama, who did, as you say, bring in lots of folks from the Valley. She doesn't know as many folks from the Valley as his people did, and that may be what happens.
How do you expect the election to play out on the technology battlefield? Trump's use of Twitter versus Hillary's more conventional use of social media?
Yeah, I think you know, it's all bets are off here. We've never seen a campaign like this. First of all, of course, there really wasn't the kind of Twitter presence the last time around that there is now. So the fact that there's been so much going on social media and it's been so divisive and so weird, will that continue? It's hard to say, but you know, it's worked for the Trump people up till now, so it's hard to imagine they're going to abandon it. But I don't expect that the Democrats will sort of rise to the occasion or fall to the occasion, depending on how you look at it.
Larry, finally, I'm not going to ask you to predict, because I've asked you that before and you don't predict, understandably.
Oh no, I do predict, I'm just always wrong.
But give me an idea of one area where you think in November we may be surprised. What's going to surprise us between now and the election? Well, especially when it comes to the candidate's attitude to technology or the role of technology in the election.
So I don't think their attitudes to technology, it's almost never the case that comes up, and you know, it's just too niche of a problem. I think what we're going to be surprised to see is how social media really does drive that percentage of the population that doesn't seem to be found in the normal polling. You know, we get all these polling surprises, even as recently as, you know, in the last 4 years and throughout the primaries. The polls don't seem to work anymore, and that science doesn't seem to be capturing some part of the population that's voting on very different criteria. We're not even quite sure what they are. I think we'll learn a lot more about that over the next few months and find out, you know, where are these people coming from and how do we measure them and why we've been missing their point of view up until now.